Restriction types. As I told you before, we can define some restrictions for each column to make sure the data is correct and coherent. First of all, we need to understand what a null value is. A null value is a non-existent value. If you have a table, for example the customer table, and for a customer on the column that stores his phone number, we assign the value null. Then it means that we don't know the phone number of that customer. The column phone number is empty. So in this example, I took the column city, and for this city we can assign a value such as Bucharest string. We can assign to it an empty string, which means a string with no characters, and we can assign the value null, which is similar to the empty string, but it's a different thing in the database. Then we have the integrity restrictions, the ones that can be assigned to the columns. These integrity restrictions are as follows. Unique, which means the values stored in that specific column are unique. We can have a column such as ID number. As I told you before, every table needs to have such a column in order to uniquely identify each record. Let's say we want it to be a number with a maximum of 5 digits, and we want to assign it the integrity restriction unique, which means there can't be two ID numbers in the same table that are equal to each other. The second integrity restriction is not null. Not null is a column that can't store null values. If we assign to the same column ID number, which is number of 5 digits, the integrity restriction not null, then this column cannot have a null value. We can't make this action ID number equals null. The database won't allow us to store this null value in the ID number column. And the third integrity restriction is check. The check is the one that I showed you previously, where we checked that the length of the phone number string is always equal to 10. Next, we're going to talk about two more integrity restrictions which are even more important. First of all, the primary key. The primary key is a column or group of columns that uniquely identifies a record in a table. We can have a primary key that consists of more than one column, but in the most cases we will use just the ID column. So the primary key is a combination between the unique integrity restriction and the not null integrity restriction. While we can assign a column the integrity restriction not null to not be able to store null values, or the unique integrity restriction to not be able to store two equal values in the column, this primary key restriction has it both. In the primary key we can't store two equal values and we can't store null values. And the foreign key uniquely identifies a record in a different table. That means that in the department table we may have a column that represents the company ID, which is this name. Then if we assign a foreign key to this name from the department table, then it will uniquely identify the company from the company table. So it uniquely identifies a record from the company table, which is a different table than the department one. And lastly, I'm going to talk about the index. An index helps by speeding up data retrieval. And I said here that it's similar to an index in the back of a book. We can create an index based on one or more columns, and it's best to create an index on a column that has a wide variety of values. If in a table we have, let's say, 100 records, and on, let's say, city column we only have 2 values, such as London and Paris, it's not very performant to create an index on that city column. But if in the same table we have column with 50 different values, then it will be a good candidate for the index. And based on that index, the database will know the dimension of a table, and it will make it easier for retrieving the data. It will make it faster. In the next video, I'm going to talk about the design of a database.